Jim Parsons is the Emmy-nominated star of one of TV's most popular comedies today, The Big Bang Theory. The show, now in its third season, airs Monday nights at 9:30 on CBS. Here now a scene from The Big Bang Theory. And that really is Stan Lee.
That's Stan Lee.
How cool is that to have Stan guest star?
It was amazing. He's one of the most, literally, he's one of the most charming human beings we've had guest on our show. We've had some lovely people, but he is so bitingly funny. Yeah. I told Kaylee, actually, we were shooting that scene between takes at one point, and just the comments he'd come off with, I'd say, he's a little like Penny and Sheldon. There's a bite to him, but a self-deprecating one. He's just charming.
Anybody who's watched this show, I suspect, would want me to ask the question that I'm going to ask now,
God.
Which is, how in the world you learn all this dialogue?
Oh, that's an easy question. Well, no, it's not. I don't know. That's all I do in a lot of ways. I don't, you know, I enjoy the work, but it's a lot of boring, rote memorization, and note cards, and just pacing around saying it again and again.
I mean, you know that sounded really oxymoronic, because you started by saying, I love this job.
I know.
It's a lot of boring.
I know.
Rote.
I know. Well, okay. I really, really enjoy the end result. There's a big safety net for me in that dialogue, in those lines. And the better I know it, and the more familiar I am with it, the more, and don't have to think about it, I know that's there, and it kind of frees me to know that the scene's going to go, it's going to go fine. You know, it allows me to kind of relax into it or whatever. Yeah. But getting the lines down can be a little bit boring, actually.
Yeah. That's a fact. Tell me more about what you mean by, I think I get it, but I'm fascinated by your formulation about how the words become a safety net for you.
Well, this relates to being in a very fortunate environment as far as trusting the writers and knowing that what's on the page is funny. What's on the page makes sense and it works. And once we get that down, the basic facts of it all, which is, God knows what a percentage of it, 90%? I don't know. The rest is just existing, you know, letting ourselves live and breathe through it and just talk to each other with it. And there is just such security in that faith in those writers and that faith in this works. I think this is amusing, you know, and all I have to do is say it and believe it and make it and keep it honest. And this works. Then the tweaks begin, obviously, and try it this way and, you know, a little less heat, a little less whatever. Thank God for a director, you know. But that's, for me, that's what the safety is.
Aside from the funny words that, to your point now, the brilliant writers put in your mouth, aside from that, what do you think? What do you think you bring to the table in playing the character that really makes him multidimensional and funny to us beyond the script? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. It does relate back to the writers again, in that I trust the words, I trust what they've written enough to go ahead and buy it fully. I would never shortchange, no matter how ridiculous something is that they've had him do. I would never shortchange it by going, oh, that's iffy. I don't know if somebody... I try and do it every time as if not only would he do it, and I believe he'd do it, he would do it with a passion. You know what I mean? And I think that's what's kind of fun about this series in general, and these characters in general, is what they feel passionate about. Not only is the science, it's a small segment of society that's studying science, and they're geniuses and what have you, but even their passions tap into more smaller circles of society, and I think it's very entertaining to actually not be a part of that circle as a viewer, and to watch them and get a real kick out of what these guys have fun doing, what these guys get angry about, that it's like, that is so tiny. You know, but I think a lot of comedy is like that, you know, it's funny because you cannot believe how passionate these people are about this, whatever it is, this obscure or seemingly minuscule thing, and to them it's not.
We jumped right in because I know the show, and it's unfair sometimes. Like, I have guests on the show and I just jump into the conversation assuming that everybody knows The Big Bang Theory, that everybody has seen it. It's always fascinating for me to give the guest the opportunity to explain in their own words what the show is. So for those who have not seen The Big Bang Theory, you would describe it as what?
It's a show about, at its heart, four geniuses who
You say so very modestly.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I didn't say the actors were geniuses. And I'm
Four
lowest on the totem
geniuses,
pole, trust me. No, the characters are four geniuses who live next door to a very normal, albeit wise in her own way, but a normal human being who Kaylee Cuoco plays, the girl next door. And she happens to be attractive, and comedy ensues. The thing is, from the beginning, there's a real, not only temptation, there is a fact of it where it's four nerds and a pretty girl. Well, yes, it is. It's a lot more than that, too. But you can't, and I think that description, though, makes a lot of people go, oh, please. And I get that. And so we try and talk about other things that it is, but it is also that, and only upon viewing it, or in my case, working on it, do you go, oh no, but there's more, If you actually check it out a couple of times, you'll see there's other things you can key into that you'll enjoy. It's not this, it's less fluffy, and it's just as fluffy as it sounds, It's a good time, too.
Yeah. When I was a kid, my favorite person, there's a point to this.
I'm fine with you.
I'll go fast.
No, don't.
When I was a kid, my favorite Bible character was King Solomon, because I would have answered, for those who know the Bible, I would have answered the question that God put to Solomon the same way King Solomon asked for, which is, what of all the things in the world do you want? Solomon asked for, as we know, wisdom. So Solomon becomes the wisest man, we are told in the Bible. I've always loved the idea of being a genius. That's what I loved it, but I loved King Solomon as a kid. As I grew older, it turns out one of my best friends in the world really is a genius. And when I got to know him many 25, 26 years ago, I was like, man, if I could ever be as genius as he is. But there were certain things about him, about his genius, and about what it would mean for me to be a genius that really turned me on. Does that make sense? So now you get a chance to, that's a long way of saying, now you get a chance to play a character who is a genius. What turns you on about genius? What is it about genius that really gets your attention?
Well, first off, we should say you're no slouch upstairs.
Well, I'm no slouch, but long way from genius, though. Yeah.
In this situation, what's so fun is it kind of relates to something we were just talking about, but the odd particulars of it. And in this situation, these people are a genius, and part of that seems to be this ability to focus so precisely in a category or on an object, on a subject, whatever, that allows or causes a byproduct of other things fall to the side. Social nicety, in the character I'm playing specifically, there's a certain arrested development that's occurred, apparently, seriously, because he wasn't exposed. And continues not to put himself out there. And seemingly, you get into the romance idea, or will he have a relationship, always comes up, or whatever, and it's like, we are dealing with a character that seems to be developing 3 years into it now that's basically opted out of that. He has no passing interest in it. If he thinks about it, it seems to be, what a waste of time. There's so much to be done. You know what I mean? That's what one of the fun things to play is his befuddlement with his roommate's constant trying to connect with another girl human being so they can, have sex, do what? I mean, you are wasting your time and your abilities. So in that case, that's what's fun. The other thing, though, and this combines both the genius aspect and the science aspect of it, is the world is our oyster as far as what we can deal with and talk about. Science-wise, what storyline is out of reach for us? If it's within the realm of imagination, it's within our possibilities to, I'm not writing it, but they can write about it. As far as a genius goes, who are you ever to look at a character and say, oh, they wouldn't do that? I don't know what they would do. So if they write it, it goes back to that thing I said earlier, I am able to dive in fully knowing he has every excuse in the world. He's a person like I've never experienced. And if I have, I apologize. But you know what I mean? Yeah. So the possibilities are endless because he's a genius. Yeah.
At this point in your career, speed of apologizing to people, hopefully this won't demand an apology, the most interesting character you've had a chance to play so far? Or near the top of the list?
Oh, definitely. And in general, it would be, I think, for many of the reasons we just said, but also because I've never been in a position, and only on TV, I guess, would you get a chance to do this, where you develop it. You know, like I say, I'm not writing it. I put in my input script by script by script, and that's how I'm helping build. But he's changing. He's morphing, you know. They all are. And so that makes him, in just that respect, makes him one of the most interesting things I've ever done.
Yep. It's interesting, but it's also funny. It's called The Big Bang Theory, starring one Jim Parsons. Jim, good stuff. Good to have you on.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
My pleasure.